Hmm. Uh, Yehos. Yehos, yehos. Good morning. Hello, Carly. Uh, yes, yes, it's relaxing time. Um, I will turn off BGM shortly. As usual, I got alerts and stuff turned off. Um, actually, I don't know if I can turn that off by itself. No, I can't. So I won't be noticing anything. um, but yeah, I hope you will have a good time listening. It's very short notice, I know, but well, that's all I can do. Thank you for hat pads. Yeah, I see they are very off. Oh, there you go. Good morning, Taro. Morning, Shana. Hey, hosh. Hey, hosh, hey, hosh. Okay. More head pads. Thank you. Okay, shall we turn down the sound and turn down the sound? I hope you can hear me fine. If I'm too low, just tell me. Yes, I know you will be looking. That's why I'm doing this quality. Go and relax, okay? We're in the middle of reading letters. Well, I mean, most of it is just her letters to Daddy Longlegs, anyways. And as you know, don't don't expect me to answer too much. Okay? Oh my gosh. I shall pour myself a glass of water there. And hydrate. Okay. Okay. May 27th. Daddy Longlegs. Dear Sir, I am in receipt of a letter from Mrs. Lippett. She hopes that I am doing well in deportment studies. Since I probably have no place to go this summer, she will let me come back to the asylum and work for my board until college opens. I hate the John Grier home. I'd rather die than go back. Yours most truthfully, Jerusha Abbott. Chat, Daddy Jams Longs. Oh gosh, I can't read French. I'm sorry, I cannot read it. I cannot read this one. Je suis très heureuse. What is this? It's a weird mix of French and English. Je suis très heureuse about the farm. Been on a farm, and I'd hate to return to was there would be danger of happening what? I would just break out. Hmm. What? Eh, okay, this is too. This is too difficult. Hmm. May 30th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, did you ever see this campus? That is merely a rhetorical question. Don't let it annoy you. It is a heavenly spot on me. All the shrubs are in blossom, and the trees are the loveliest young green. Even the old pines look fresh and new. The grass is dotted with yellow dandelions, and hundreds of girls in blue and white and pink dresses. Everybody is joyous and carefree, for vacation's coming, and with that to look forward to, examinations don't count. Isn't that a happy frame of mind to be in? And oh, Daddy, I'm the happiest of all, because I'm not in the asylum anymore, and I'm not anybody's nursemaid or typewriter or bookkeeper. I should have been, except for you. I'm sorry now for all my past badnesses. I'm sorry I was ever impertinent to Mrs. Lippett. I'm sorry I ever slapped Freddie Perkins. I'm sorry I ever filled a sugar bowl with salt. I'm sorry I ever made faces behind the trustees' backs. I'm going to be good and sweet and kind to everybody because I'm so happy. And this summer I'm going to write and write and write and begin to be a great author. Isn't that an exalted stand to take? Oh, I'm developing a beautiful character. It droops a bit under cold and frost, but it does grow fast when the sun shines. That's the way with everybody. I don't agree with the theory that adversity and sorrow and disappointment develop moral strength. The happy people are the ones who are bubbling over with kindliness. I have no faith in misanthropes. Fine word, you just learned it. You're not a misanthrope, are you, Daddy? I started to tell you about the campus. I wish you'd come for a little visit and let me walk you about and say, that is the library. This is the gas plant, Daddy dear. The Gothic building on your left is the gymnasium, and the Tudor Romanesque behind it is the new infirmary. Oh, I'm fine at showing people about. I've done it all my life at the asylum, and I've been doing it all day here. I have, honestly. And a man, too. That's a great experience. I never talked to a man before, except occasional trustees, and they don't count. Pardon, Daddy. I don't mean to hurt your feelings when I abuse trustees. I don't consider that you really belong among them. You just stumbled onto the board by chance. Trustee, as such, is fat and pompous and benevolent. He pats one on the head and wears a gold watch chain. That looks like a June bug, but is meant to be a portrait of any trustee, except you. However, to resume, I have been walking and talking and having tea with a man, and with a very superior man, with Mr. Jervis Pendleton of the House of Julia, her uncle, in short, and long perhaps I ought to say, he's as tall as you, being in town on business. He decided to run out to the college and call on his niece. He's her father's youngest brother, but she didn't know him very intimately. It seems he glanced at her when she was a baby, decided he didn't like her, and has never noticed her since. Anyway, there he was, sitting at the reception room, very proper with his hat and stick and gloves beside him, and Julia and Sally with 7th-hour recitations that they couldn't cut. So Julia dashed into my room and begged me to walk him about the campus and then deliver him to her when the 7th hour was over. He said I would, obligingly, but unenthusiastically, because I don't care much for the Pendletons. But he turned out to be a sweet lamb. He's a real human being, not a Pendleton at all. We had a beautiful time. I've longed for an uncle ever since. Do you mind pretending you're my uncle? I believe they're superior to grandmothers. Mr. Pendleton reminded me a little of you, Daddy, as you were 20 years ago. You see, I know you intimately, even if we haven't ever met. He's tall and thinnish, with a dark face all over lines, and the funniest underneath smile that never quite comes through, but just wrinkles up the corners of his mouth. and he has a way of making you feel right off as though you'd known him a long time. He's very companionable. We walked all over the campus from the quadrangle to the athletic grounds. Then he said he felt weak and must have some tea. He proposed that we go to College Inn. It's just off the campus by the pine wall. I said we ought to go back for Julia and Sally, but he said he didn't like to have his nieces drink too much tea. It made him nervous. So we just ran away and had tea and muffins and marmalade and ice cream and cake at a nice little table out on the balcony. The inn was quite conveniently empty, this being the end of the month and allowances low. We had the jolliest time, but he had to run for his train the minute he got back, and he barely saw Julia at all. She was furious with me for taking him off. It seems he's an unusually rich and desirable uncle. It relieved my mind to find he was rich, for the tea and things cost 60 cents apiece. This morning, it's Monday now, 3 boxes of chocolates came by express for Julia and Sally and me. What do you think of that? To be getting candy from a man. I begin to feel like a girl instead of a foundling. I wish you'd come and have tea some day, and let me see if I like you. But wouldn't it be dreadful if I didn't? However, I know I should. Bien. I make you my compliments. Jamais je ne t'oublierai. Judy. P.S. I looked in the glass this morning and found a perfectly new dimple that I'd never seen before. It's very curious. Where do you suppose it came from? Dear Daddy Longlegs, happy day! I've just finished my last examination physiology. And now, 3 months on a farm. I don't know what kind of thing a farm is. I've never been on one in my life. I've never even looked at one, except from the car window. But I know I'm going to love it, and I'm going to love being free. I am not used even yet to being outside the John Grier home. Whenever I think of it, excited little thrills chase up and down my back. I feel as though I must run faster and faster and keep looking over my shoulder to make sure that Mrs. Lippett isn't after me with her arm stretched out to grab me back. I don't have to mind anyone this summer, do I? The nominal authority doesn't annoy me in the least. You're too far away to do any harm. Mrs. Lippett is dead forever, so far as I am concerned, and the samples aren't expected to overlook my moral welfare, are they? No, I am sure not. I am entirely grown up. Hooray! I leave you now to pack a trunk, and 3 boxes of tea kettles and dishes and sofa cushions and books. Yours ever, Judy. P.S. Here's my physiology exam. Do you think you could have passed? Luckwillow Farm, Saturday night. Dearest Daddy Longlegs, I've only just come, and I'm not unpacked, but I can't wait to tell you how much I like farms. This is a heavenly, heavenly, heavenly spot. The house is square like this, and old. 100 years or so. It has a veranda on the side, which I can't draw, and a sweet porch in front. The picture really doesn't do it justice. Those things that look like feather dusters are maple trees, and the prickly ones that border the drive are murmuring pines and hemlocks. It stands on the top of the hill and looks way off over miles of green meadows to another line of hills. That is the way Connecticut goes, in a series of missile waves, and Luckwillow Farm is just on the crest of one wave. The barns used to be across the road, where they obstructed the view, but a kind flash of lightning came from heaven and burnt them down. The people are Mr. and Mrs. Semple, and a hired girl and 2 hired men. The hired people eat in the kitchen, and the Semples and Judy in the dining room. We had ham and eggs and biscuits and honey, jelly cake and pie and pickles and cheese and tea for supper, and a great deal of conversation. I have never been so entertaining in my life. Everything I say appears to be funny. I suppose it is because I've never been in the country before, and my questions are backed by an all-inclusive ignorance. The room marked with a cross is not where the murder was committed, but the one that I occupy. It's big and square and empty, with adorable old-fashioned furniture and windows that have to be propped up on sticks, and green shades trimmed with gold that fall down if you touch them. And the big square mahogany table. I'm going to spend the summer with my elbows spread out on it, writing a novel. Oh, Daddy, I'm so excited. I can't wait till daylight to explore. It's 8:30 now, and I am about to blow out my candle and try to go to sleep. Rise at 5. Did you ever know such fun? I can't believe this is really Judy. You and the good Lord give me more than I deserve. I must be a very, very, very good person to pay. I'm going to be. You'll see. Good night, Judy. P.S. You should hear the frogs sing and the little pig squeal. You should see the new moon. Saw right over. I saw what right over my shoulder. Luckwillow, 12th of July. Dear Daddy Longlegs, how did your secretary come to know about Luckwillow? That isn't a rhetorical question. I am awfully curious to know. For listen to this. Mr. Jervis Pendleton used to own this farm, but now he has given it to Miss Semple, who was his old nurse. Did you ever hear of such a funny coincidence? She still calls him Master Jerry, and talks about what a sweet little boy he is to be. She has one of his baby curls put away in a box, and it is red, or at least reddish. Since she divorced, since she discovered that I know him, I have risen very much in her opinion. Knowing a member of the Pendleton family is the best introduction one can have at Loch Willow, and the cream of the whole family is Master Jervis. I am pleased to say that Julia belongs to an inferior branch. The farm gets more and more entertaining. I rode on a hay wagon yesterday. We have 3 big pigs and 9 little piglets, and you should see them eat. They are pigs! We've oceans of little baby chickens, and ducks, and turkeys, and guinea fowls. You must be mad to live in a city when you might live on a farm. It is my daily business to hunt the eggs. I fell off a beam in the barn loft yesterday while I was trying to crawl over to a nest that the black hen has stolen, and when I came in with a scratched knee, Mrs. Sample bound it up with witch hazel, murmuring all the time, "Dear, dear, it seems only yesterday that Master Jerry fell off that very same beam and scratched his very same knee." The scenery around here is perfectly beautiful. There's a valley and a river and a lot of wooded hills, and way in the distance a tall blue mountain that simply melts in your mouth. We churn twice a week, and we keep the cream in the spring house, which is made of stone with a brook running underneath. Some of the farmers around here have a separator, but we don't care for these new-fashioned ideas. It may be a little harder to separate the cream in pans, but it's sufficiently better to pay. We have 6 calves, and I've chosen the names for all of them. First, Sylvia, because she was born in the woods. Second, Lesbia, after the Lesbia and Catullus. Third, Sally. Fourth is Julia, a spotted, nondescript animal. Fifth is Judy, after me. Sixth, Daddy Longlegs. You don't mind, do you, Daddy? He's pure Jersey and has a sweet disposition. He looks like this. You can see how appropriate the name is. I haven't had time yet to begin my immortal novel. The farm keeps me too busy. Yours always, Judy. P.S. I've learned to make donuts. P.S. 2. If you're thinking of raising chickens, let me recommend Buff Orpingtons. They haven't any pin feathers. P.S. 3. I wish I could send you a part of the nice, fresh butter I churned yesterday. I'm a fine dairy maid. P.S. 4. This is a picture of Miss Jerusha Abbott, the future great author, driving home the cows. Sunday. Dear Daddy Longlegs, isn't it funny? I started to write to you yesterday afternoon, but as far as I got was the heading, Dear Daddy Longlegs. And then I remembered I'd promised to pick some blackberries for supper, so I went off and left the sheet lying on the table. When I came back today, what do you think I found sitting in the middle of the page? A real true daddy longlegs. I picked him up very gently by one leg and dropped him out of the window. I wouldn't hurt one of them for the world. They always remind me of you. We hitched up the spring wagon this morning and drove to the center of the church. It's a sweet little white frame church with a spire and three Doric columns in front. Or maybe I, or maybe Ionic. I always get them mixed. A nice, sleepy sermon with everybody drowsily waving palm leaf fans, and the only sound, aside from the minister, the buzzing of locusts in the trees outside. I didn't wake up till I found myself on my feet singing the hymn, and then I was awfully sorry I hadn't listened to the sermon. I should like to know more of the psychology of a man who would pick out such a hymn. This was it. Come, leave your sports and earthly toys, and join me in celestial joys. Whilst, dear friend, a long farewell, I leave you now to sink to hell. I find that it isn't safe to discuss religion with the samplers. Their God, whom they have inherited intact from their remote Puritan ancestors, is a narrow, irrational, unjust, mean, revengeful, bigoted person. Thank heaven I don't inherit God from anybody. I am free to make mine up as I wish him. He's kind and sympathetic and imaginative and forgiving and understanding. And he has a sense of humor. I like the samples immensely. Their practice is so superior to their theory. They are better than their own God. I told them so. And they are horribly troubled. They think I'm blasphemous. And I think they are. We've dropped theology from our conversation. This is Sunday afternoon. Amasai, hired man, in a purple tie and some bright yellow buckskin gloves, very red and shaved, has just driven off with Carrie, hired girl, in a big hat trimmed with red roses, and a blue muslin dress, and her hair curled as tight as it will curl. Amasai spent all the morning washing the buggy, and Carrie stayed home from church ostensibly to cook the dinner, but really to iron the muslin dress. In 2 minutes more, when the sledge is finished, I am going to settle down to a book which I found in the attic. It's entitled On the Trail, and sprawled across the front page in a funny little boy hand, Jervis Pendleton. If this book should ever roam, box its ears and send it home. He spent the summer here once after he had been ill, when he was about 11 years old, and he left On the Trail behind. It looks well read. The marks of his grimy little hands are frequent. Also, in a corner of the attic, there is a water wheel and a windmill and some bows and arrows. Mrs. Sample talks so constantly about him that I begin to believe he really lives. Not a grown man with a silk hat and walking stick, but a nice, dirty, towel-haired boy who clatters up the stairs with an awful racket, and leaves the screen doors open and is always asking for cookies. Getting them too, if I know Mrs. Sample. He seems to have been an adventurous little soul, and brave and truthful. I'm sorry to think he is a Pendleton. He was meant for something better. We're going to begin threshing oats tomorrow. A steam engine is coming, and 3 extra men. It grieves me to tell you that Buttercup, the spotted cow with one horn, mother of Lesbia, has done a disgraceful thing. She got into the orchard Friday evening and ate apples under the trees, and ate, until they went to her head. For 2 days she has been perfectly dead drunk. That is the truth I am telling. Did you ever hear anything so scandalous? Sir, I remain your affectionate orphan, Judy Abbott. P.S. Indians in the first chapter and highwaymen in the second. I hold my breath. What can the third contain? Red Hawk leapt 20 feet in the air and bit the dust. That is the subject of the frontispiece. Aren't Judy and Jarvie having fun? September 15th. Dear Daddy, I was weighed yesterday on the flour scales in the general store at the Comers. I've gained 9 pounds. Let me recommend Loch Willow as a health resort. Yours ever, Judy. Dear Daddy Longlegs, behold me, a sophomore. I came up last Friday. Sorry to leave Lochwiller, but glad to see the campus again. It is a pleasant sensation to come back to something familiar. I am beginning to feel at home in college, in command of the situation. I am beginning, in fact, to feel at home in the world, as though I really belonged to it, and had not just crept in on sufferance. I don't suppose you understand in the least what I am trying to say. A person important enough to be a trustee can't appreciate the feelings of a person unimportant enough to be a foundling. And now, Daddy, listen to this. Whom do you think I am rooming with? Sally McBride and Julia Rutledge Pendleton. It's the truth. We have a study and three little bedrooms. Voila! Sally and I decided last spring that we should like to room together, and Julia made up her mind to stay with Sally. Why, I can't imagine, for they are not a bit alike. But the Pendletons are natural conservatives and inimical, fine word, to change. Anyway, here we are. Think of Jerusha Abbott, late of the John Grier Home for Orphans, rooming with a Pendleton. This is a democratic country. Sally is running for class president, and unless all signs fail, she's going to be elected. Such an atmosphere of intrigue. You should see what politicians we are. Oh, I tell you, Daddy, when we women get our rights, you men will have to look alive in order to keep yours. Election comes next Saturday, and we're going to have a torchlight procession in the evening, no matter who wins. I am beginning chemistry, a most unusual study. I've never seen anything like it before. Molecules and atoms are the material employed, but I'll be in a position to discuss them more definitely next month. I am also taking argumentation and logic, also a history of the whole world, also plays of William Shakespeare, also French. If this keeps up many years longer, I shall become quite intelligent. I should rather have elected economics than French, but I didn't dare, because I was afraid that unless I re-elected French, the professor would not let me pass. As it was, I just managed to squeeze through the June examination. But I will say that my high school preparation was not very adequate. There's one girl in the class who chatters away in French as fast as she does in English. She went abroad with her parents when she was a child, spent 3 years in a convent school. You can imagine how bright she is compared with the rest of us. Regular verbs are mere playthings. I wish my parents had chucked me into a French convent when I was little, instead of a foundling asylum. Oh, sorry. Oh no, I don't either. Because then maybe I should never have known you. I'd rather know you than French. Goodbye, Daddy. I must call on Harriet Martin now, and, having discussed the chemical situation, casually drop a few thoughts on the subject of our next president. Yours in politics, J. Abbott. October 17th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, supposing the swimming tank and the gymnasium were filled full of lemon jelly, could a person trying to swim manage to keep on top, or would he sink? We were having lemon jelly for dessert, and the question came up. We discussed it heatedly for half an hour, and it's still unsettled. Sally thinks that she could swim in it, but I'm perfectly sure that the best swimmer in the world would sink. Wouldn't it be funny to be drowned in lemon jelly? Two other problems are engaging the attention of our table. First, what shape are the rooms in an octagon house? Some of the girls insist that they're square, but I think they have to be shaped like a piece of pie, don't you? Second, suppose there were great big hollow sphere made of looking glass, and you were sitting inside. Where would it stop reflecting your face and begin reflecting your back? The more one thinks about this problem, the more puzzling it becomes. You can see with what deep philosophical reflection we engage our leisure. Did I ever tell you about the election? It happened 3 weeks ago, but so fast to relive that 3 weeks is an ancient history. Sally was elected. We had a torchlight parade with transparency saying McBride forever, and a band consisting of 14 pieces, 3 mouth organs and 11 combs. We're very important persons now in 258. Julie and I come in for a great deal of reflected glory. It's quite a social strain to be living in the same house with the president. Bonne nuit, cher Daddy. Accept, acceptez mes compliments très respectueux. Je suis votre Julie. I'm very bad at French. Okay. November 12th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, we beat the freshmen at basketball yesterday. Of course we're pleased, but oh, if we could only beat the juniors. I'd be willing to be black and blue all over and stay in bed a week in a witch hazel compress. Sally has invited me to spend a Christmas vacation with her. She lives in Worcester, Massachusetts. Wasn't it nice of her? I shall love to go. I've never been in a private family in my life, except at Loch Willow, and the Samples were grown up and old and don't count. But the McBrides have a house full of children, anyway 2 or 3, and a mother and father and grandmother and an Angora cat. It is perfectly it is a perfectly complete family. Packing your trunk and going away is more fun than staying behind. I am terribly excited at the prospect. 7th hour. I must run to rehearsal. I'm to be in the Thanksgiving theatricals. A prince in a tower with a velvet tunic and yellow curls. Isn't that a lark? Yours, J.A. Saturday. Do you want to know what I look like? Here's a photograph of all 3 that Leonora Fenton took. The light one who's laughing is Sally, and the tall one with her nose in the air is Julia, and the little one with the hair blowing across her face is Judy. She is really more beautiful than that, but the sun was in her eyes. Stonegate, Worcester, Massachusetts, December 31st. Dear Daddy Longlegs, I meant to write to you before and thank you for your Christmas check, but life in the McBride household is very absorbing. They don't seem able to find 2 consecutive minutes to spend at a desk. I bought a new gown, one that I didn't need, but just wanted. My Christmas present this year is from Daddy Longlegs. My family just sent love. I've been having the most beautiful vacation visiting Sally. She lives in a big, old-fashioned brick house with a white trimming set back from the street. Exactly the kind of house that I used to look at so curiously when I was in John Grier home and wonder what it could be like inside. I never expected to see with my own eyes, but here I am. Everything is so comfortable and restful and homelike. I walk from room to room and drink in the furnishings. It is the most perfect house for children to be brought up in, with shadowy nooks for hide and seek, and open fireplaces for popcorn, and an attic to romp in on rainy days, and slippery banisters with a comfortable flat knob at the bottom, and a great, big, sunny kitchen, and a nice, fat, sunny cook who has lived with the family 13 years and always saves out a piece of dough for the children to bake. Just the sight of such a house makes you want to be a child all over again. And as for families, I never dreamed they could be so nice. Sally has a father and mother and grandmother, and the sweetest 3-year-old baby sister all over curls, and a medium-sized brother who always forgets to wipe his feet, and a big, good-looking brother named Jimmy, who is a junior at Princeton. We have the jolliest times at the table. Everybody laughs and jokes and talks at once. We don't have to say grace beforehand. It's a relief not having to thank somebody for every mouthful you eat. I dare say I'm blasphemous. But you'd be too if you'd offered as much obligatory thanks as I have. Such a lot of things we've done. I can't begin to tell you about them. Mr. McBride owns a factory, and Christmas Eve he had a tree for the employees' children. It was in a long packing room which was decorated with evergreens and holly. Jimmy McBride was dressed as Santa Claus, and Sally and I helped him distribute the presents. Dear me, Daddy, but it was a funny sensation. I felt as benevolent as a trustee of the John Grier home. I kissed one sweet, sticky little boy, but I don't think I patted any of them in the head. And 2 days after Christmas, they gave a dance at their own house for me. It was the first really true ball I ever attended. College doesn't count where we dance with girls. I had a new white evening gown, a Christmas present, many things, and long white gloves and white satin slippers. The only drawback to my perfect, utter, absolute happiness was the fact that Mrs. Lippett couldn't see me leading the cotillion with Jimmy McBride. Tell her about it, please, the next time you visit the John Grier home. Yours ever, Judy Abbott. P.S. Would you be terribly displeased, Daddy, if I didn't turn out to be a great author after all, or just a plain girl? 6:30, Saturday. Dear Daddy, we started to walk to town today, but mercy, how it poured. I like winter to be winter with snow instead of rain. Julia's desirable uncle called again this afternoon and brought a 5-pound box of chocolates. There were advantages, you see, about rooming with Julia. Our innocent prattle appeared to amuse him, and he waited for a later train in order to take tea in the study. We had an awful lot of trouble getting permission. It's hard enough entertaining fathers and grandfathers, but uncles are a step worse. And as for brothers and cousins, they are next to impossible. Julia had to swear that he was her uncle before a notary public, and then have the county clerk's certificate attached. Don't they know a lot of law? And even then, I doubt we could have had our tea if the dean had a chance to see how youngish and good-looking Uncle Jervis is. Anyway, we had it, with brown bread Swiss cheese sandwiches. He helped make them, and then ate 4. I told him that I had spent last summer at Loch Willow, and we had a beautiful gossipy time about the samples, and the horses and cows and chickens. All the horses that he used to know are dead, except Grover, who was a baby colt at the time of his last visit, and poor Grover now is so old he can just limp about the pasture. He asked if they still kept donuts in a yellow crock with a blue plate over it on the bottom shelf of the pantry, and they do. He wanted to know if there was still a woodchuck's hole under the pile of rocks in the night pasture, and there is. Amasai caught a big, fat, grey one there this summer, the 25th great-grandson of the one Master Jervis caught when he was a little boy. I called him Master Jervy to his face, but he didn't appear to be insulted. Julia says she has never seen him so amiable. He's usually pretty unapproachable. But Julia hasn't a bit of tact, and men, I find, require a great deal. They purr if you rub them the right way, and spit if you don't. That isn't a very elegant metaphor. I mean it figuratively. We're reading Marie Bashkirtseff's journal. Isn't it amazing? Listen to this. Last night I was seized by a fit of despair that found utterance in moans, and that finally drove me to throw the dining room clock into the sea. It makes me almost hope I'm not a genius. They must be very wearing to have about, and awfully destructive to the furniture. Mercy, how it keeps pouring. We shall have to swim the chapel tonight. Yours ever, Judy. January 20th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, did you ever have a sweet baby girl who was stolen from the cradle in infancy? Maybe I am she. If it were in a novel, that would be the denouement, wouldn't it? It's really awfully queer not to know what one is. Sort of exciting and romantic. There is such a lot of possibilities. Maybe I'm not American. Lots of people aren't. I may be straight descendant from the ancient Romans, or maybe a Viking's daughter, or I may be the child of a Russian exile, and belong by rights in a Siberian prison. Or maybe I'm a gypsy. I think perhaps I am. I have a very wandering spirit, though I haven't as yet had much chance to develop it. Do you know about that one scandalous blot in my career, the time I ran away from the asylum because they punished me for stealing cookies? It's down in the books free for any trustee to read. But really, Daddy, what could you expect? When you put a hungry little 9-year-old girl in the pantry scouring knives, with a cookie jar at her elbow, and go off and leave her alone, and then suddenly pop in again, wouldn't you expect to find her a bit grumpy? And then, when you jerk her by the elbow and box her ears and make her leave the table when the pudding comes, and tell all the other children that it's because she's a thief, wouldn't you expect her to run away? I only went 4 miles. They caught me and brought me back. And every day for a week I was tied like a naughty puppy to a stake in the backyard while the other children were out at recess. Oh dear, there's the chapel bell, and after chapel I have a committee meeting. I'm sorry because I meant to write you a very entertaining letter this time. Auf Wiedersehen. Ciao, Daddy. Pax Tibi. Jody. P.S. There's one thing I'm perfectly sure of. I'm not a Chinaman. February 4th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, Jimmy McBride has sent me a Princeton banner as big as one end of the room. I'm very grateful to him for remembering me, but I don't know what on earth to do with it. Sally and Julia won't let me hang it up. Our room this year is furnished in red, and you can imagine what an effect we'd have if I added orange and black. But it's such nice, warm, thick felt. I hate to waste it. Would it be very improper to have it made into a bathrobe? My old one shrank when it was washed. I've entirely omitted of late telling you what I am learning, but though you might not imagine it from my letters, my time is exclusively occupied with study. It's a very bewildering matter to get educated in 5 branches at once. The test of true scholarship, says chemistry professor, is a painstaking passion for detail. Be careful not to keep your eyes glued to detail, says history professor. Stand far enough away to get a perspective of the whole. You can see with what nicety we have to trim our sails between chemistry and history. I like the historical method best. If I say that William the Conqueror came over in 1492, Columbus discovered America in 1100 or 1066 or whenever it was, that's a mere detail that the professor overlooks. It gives a feeling of security and restfulness to the history recitation that is entirely lacking in chemistry. 6th hour bell. I must go to the laboratory and look into a little matter of acids and salts and alkalis. I've burnt a hole as big as a plate in the front of my chemistry apron with hydrochloric acid. If the theory worked, I ought to be able to neutralize that hole with good strong ammonia, won't I? Examination next week, but who's afraid? Yours ever, Judy. March 5th. Dear Daddy Longlegs, there's a March wind blowing and the sky is filled with heavy, black moving clouds. The crows in the pine trees are making such a clamor. It's an intoxicating, exhilarating, calling noise. You want to close your books and be off over the hills to race with the wind. We had a paper chase last Saturday over 5 miles of squashy cross country. The Fox, composed of 3 girls and a bushel or so of confetti, started half an hour before the 27 hunters. I was one of the 27. 8 dropped by the wayside. We ended 19. The trail led over a hill, through a cornfield and into a swamp, where we had to leap lightly from hummock to hummock. Of course, half of us went in ankle deep. We kept losing the trail, and we wasted 25 minutes over the swamp. Then up a hill, through some woods, and in at a barn window. The barn doors were all locked, and the window was up high and pretty small. I don't call that fair, do you? But we didn't go through. We circumnavigated the barn and picked up the trail where it issued by way of a low shed roof on top of a fence. The Fox thought he had us there, but we fooled him. Then, straight away over 2 miles of rolling meadow, and awfully hard to follow, for the confetti was getting sparse. The rule is that it must be at the most 6 feet apart, but they were the longest 6 feet I ever saw. Finally, after 2 hours of steady trotting, we tracked Monsieur Fox into the kitchen of Crystal Spring. That's a farm where the girls go in bobsleighs and hay wagons for chicken and waffle suppers. And we found the 3 foxes placidly eating milk and honey and biscuits. They hadn't thought we would get that far. They were expecting us to stick in the barn window. Both sides insisted they won. I think we did, don't you? Because we caught them before they got back to the campus. Anyway, all 19 of us settled like locusts over the furniture and clamored for honey. There wasn't enough to go around, but Mrs. Crystal Spring, that's our pet name for her, she's by rights a Johnson, bought up a jar of strawberry jam and a can of maple syrup, just made last week, and 3 loaves of brown bread. We didn't get back to college till 6:30, half an hour late for dinner, and we went straight in without dressing and with perfectly unimpaired appetites. Then we all caught evening chapel, the state of our boots being enough of an excuse. I never told you about examinations. I passed everything with the utmost ease. I know the secret now, and I'm never going to fail again. I shan't be able to graduate with honors, though, because of that beastly Latin prose and geometry freshman year, but I don't care. What's the halt so long as you're happy? That's a quotation. I've been reading the English classics. Speaking of classics, have you ever read Hamlet? If you haven't, do it right off. It's perfectly corking. I've been hearing about Shakespeare all my life, but I had no idea he really wrote so well. I always suspected him of going largely on his reputation. I have a beautiful play that I invented a long time ago when I first learned to read. I put myself to sleep every night by pretending I'm the person, the most important person, in the book I'm reading at the moment. At present, I'm Ophelia. Such a sensible Ophelia. I keep Hamlet amused all the time, and pet him and scold him, and make him rap out his throat when he has a cold. I've entirely cured him of being melancholy. The king and queen are both dead. An accident at sea. No funeral necessary. So Hamlet and I are ruling in Denmark without any bother. We have the kingdom working beautifully. He takes care of the governing, and I look after the charities. I've just founded some first-class orphan asylums. If you or any of the other trustees would like to visit them, I shall be pleased to show you through. I think you might find a great many helpful suggestions. I remain, sir, yours most graciously, Ophelia, Queen of Denmark. And that shall be it for tonight. I hope you were able to relax a little, and maybe some of you were able to go to sleep. I will make sure to make a schedule today and post it later on. But yeah, I am not sure when next reading time will be. We'll see about it. I hope you all have a wonderful night, or will be having a wonderful night. We shall go and await someone who's playing Animal Crossing. I guess that's more relaxing than something else. The others are like playing Valorant or Apex, so I don't think that's very relaxing at all. And I want you guys to be relaxed. Please, everyone, take care of yourselves, alright? And remember to eat your veggies. If you do want to send a weak message, let it just be comfy read. And if you have my heart emote, use that. Okay? Okay. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Oh, Sasasachi, thank you for the raid. Hi, readers. Thank you so much. Can I get a shout out for Sasasachi? Copy raid. Hello. Binds the hemoglobin in blood, which restricts oxygen. Yeah, so like you can start to feel tired. I know that. Hello, Daishori.
Daishori.
Like that. Hope I'm having fun. Thank you. I hope your stream went well. Thank you so much for the raid. Daishori, thank you for the follow. You guys came in at the right time. We're talking about carbon monoxide right now. Okay, coal miners, that's right. History. I didn't think about those associations. Thank you for that, Anson. Incomplete combustion, huh? Patron, are you like a chemist or something? Like, why did you... How did you have cyanide on you? You were right with the assumption it would be rather calm here. I hope I'm living up to it. People tell me my streams are comfortable, but right now we're talking about chemicals and I kind of... I feel kind of bad you came in at that time. Complete combustion must take place first. Produces carbon dioxide. Okay. Use the chemical stuff? Okay. I'm literally just... Okay, context, I'm island hopping for Sasha right now. I am like 290 tickets in and I'm losing hope. Like, I had 541 total and I'm almost through 300, so... Yeah. Please manifest him for me. I want him so bad. No idea what you're talking about. I mean, I took like a super basic chemistry class over the summer. It wasn't, like, we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. It was very, like, surface level chemistry. Is there a recipe on this one? Nope. Yeah, just take me home, my guy. Thanks. Don't snort cyanide! Stop it, patron. Please, patron, don't.